Hi, this is Steve. Welcome back to Scale Model Kit Review. In this video I continue to build the Agora model's Shelby GT500 Super Snake. Now I am on pack number 8. Pack number 8 arrived not too long ago and all 9 stages are included with pack 8. And there's a lot going on here as I build some of the components, the suspension parts on the chassis, as well as installing a lot of the interior onto the chassis. So stay tuned for that. Now, if you haven't done so already, head over to agoramodels.com and subscribe to this car today, as well as other cars that they have available in other kits. There's planes, ships, cars, and lots happening in 2021. So do yourself a favor, head over there and subscribe to their model kits today.
The interesting thing about testing out high-performance automobiles is that you can only do it with top drivers who can take the cars right up to the maximum.
Now, if you haven't seen the sheer size of these cars, this is what it looks like. This is what the Shelby Super Snake looks like after I've completed pack 8. So there's a lot going on here. A lot of stuff has been installed already, and it's really starting to look like the Mustang. I think it's fantastic, don't you? So, like I said, we'll go ahead and begin on stage 56. So, happy modeling, and let's get started. Welcome back. Let's look at the parts for pack 8. And remember, in pack 8 we received 9 stages. So here's the first 5 stages that we'll be going over: 57, 56, 57, 58, 59, and 60. Let's look at the next 4. And here's the next 4, which make up our 9 stages: 61, 62, 63, and 64. Let's look at them individually. Pack 56, we received the shock absorber and left rear brake housing. And you can see how that looks there. Stage 57, we receive the left rear wheel. And we get the hubcap with that also. You can barely see it in there, but it is in there. '58, we receive the shock absorber and right rear brake. And we have some small parts in there once again. This looks just like 56, but the other side. And 59, we receive the right rear wheel. And it's the same thing as we received with 57. And stage 60, we receive the exhaust system assembly. Dual exhaust, of course. Very nice. 61, we receive their steering column and steering wheel. And lots of tiny parts in there. Looks like we have a wire for the horn. Very nice. Stage 62, we receive the trunk panel. Stage 63, we receive the spare wheel. And lastly, for pack 8, stage 64, we receive the trunk panels, jack, and fitting spare wheel. And here's the parts for stage 56, and you see they're well protected in the plastic bag here. I will go ahead and take these out and we will get a closer look at them. And as you can see, here is a close-up of the parts, and we received the left rear brake assembly made of black plastic and silver plastic. Very nice here, already assembled together. And we received the shock absorber cylinder and piston assembly along with the support bracket and MPO1, MPO3 screws along with the pin, and that's a metal pin. Everything else is plastic except for the screws and the pin. So let's get started. So for step one, we assemble the shock absorber cylinder and support. Now we have to put the pin through here to hold the support in place, just like that. It's going to go in, it's going to get fed through the support here. And it's not that hard to do. Make sure that the rough edge of the pin will lock it in place. And if you don't have a pair of small needle nose pliers, you could always use a real good solid pair of tweezers like I have here, and I should be able to just squeeze it to get it to engage, just like that, and it's engaged just like that. But like I said, preferably a small pair of needle nose pliers would work great with that. Now we need to get our chassis and bring it over. And here's the chassis. And I believe this is going on to the rear side here. Just like that. And I believe what we're going to go ahead and do here in this case, and bring it over so you can kind of see it, is we're going to fit this onto the bottom of the chassis, and the shock absorber itself is going to mount right into the back side here. So we'll take the shock absorber and we'll slide it in, the piston slide into the shock absorber, and we're going to fit bottom in and the top in. Just like that. And they tell you to take the mounting plate off itself to put your screw in to hold it in place. We're going to put an MPO3 screw into that. And I think we can go ahead and just do that without having to take the plate off. And I'm just holding it together. And it's on there pretty good. And then we're going to go on the back side of that mounting where the shock is, and we're got the mounting support, and we're going to screw that down. Turn it over. And it's going to go right there. And this time we'll put an MPO1 screw into this. And that's nice and tight. That's great. So we've mounted that shock absorber. And I think you can get a good view of it right there. And right there. So without having to take the plate off, you could take it off and attach this, and all is well on that. But I was able to hold it and prevent it from turning and put my screw into it. And the last thing we do is we fit the brake assembly with the silver side out. And I believe it just slides on there, just rolls around. That's pretty much all we do for stage 56. Here's the parts pack for stage 57, and as you can see, everything is protected in the bag here. And we have basically 4 different items contained within this. So I will go ahead and take these out and we'll get a closer look. And you can see here's a close-up of the parts. Be careful when you remove everything out of the bag that you do get your screws that are included, the MP03 screws. They were kind of hidden in there. And here's the wheel itself. The wheel is made of metal, very stout, very heavy duty. It actually has the valve stem already on it. And of course the hubcap, Cobra Snake hubcap, very nice there. And the rubber tire. And you know, this is going to be fun here because we got to put it in some very hot water and put it over the top of this rim here next. So I'll show you how to do that here shortly. So let's get started. So the very first step, we have to put the tire on the rim, and the tire is very hard and not very pliable. So in order to do this, I actually have to take the tire and put it in boiling water and put it in there for about 3 minutes. I think that's all it needs. Then I'll wrap it in some aluminum foil because I'll be in my kitchen, and I'll bring it in here and it should slide right on the rim with no problem. So I'll be right back. So here it is. It's all boiled up. Very pliable, as you can see. So I'll go ahead and slide the rim on it. And it will work very nicely. Do the back side first. And it will go right on, just like that. And there it is. Very nice. So I'll let that cool down and I will be right back. Step 2, we go ahead and install the wheel and tire onto the axle. And the first thing they want you to do is line up the brake disc assembly, the brake drum, to the slot that's here on the inside with the notch that's on the drum, and simply just goes down on that. And then once you do that, then you can slide it on the axle. So we'll go ahead and put this on the axle once it's in place, and we'll slide that on there. And then we take our MP03 screw and we're going to screw that down. And there you go. And that is on there. And then they tell us we can put our cap on. Make sure you don't over tighten that screw. And that completes stage 57. We went ahead and put the tire on the wheel, and we installed that wheel and tire onto the axle, taking care that we don't over tighten that screw, and that way we have the wheel that turns freely here, just like it shows, and we have our hubcap installed. Welcome back. Here's the parts pack for stage 58, and we have the brake parts here and shock assembly for the right side. So I'll go ahead and take these out and we'll get a closer look. And here's a close-up of those parts. Everything here is plastic except for the metal pin and the screws, but we do have our mount for the shock assembly and our piston and shock absorber, along with the brake drum. Plastic, black on one side, silver on the other. MPO1, MPO3 screws, and the metal pin to hold the shock absorber to the mount. So let me get this started. Be right back. And step one, they want us to mount the shock absorber to the mount here. And in this case, we will go ahead and put the pin in like I did before. Slide that in one side here. Try to hold it in place while the pin gets inserted here. And pretty much press it through with some needle nose pliers. In this case, I don't have a pair handy right now, so I'm going to use my real good stout pair of needle nose, or these needle tweezers here. And you can find a good pair of these on Amazon. The Tamiya makes a really good pair also, and I'll just use them to squeeze that down. Perfect. Now we'll bring the chassis over and get this mounted to the chassis. And what we'll do here first is we will go ahead and slide the shaft into the piston here into the shock absorber, and we're going to make sure that this mounts flush as much as possible. And we'll put it down inside first and lift it up, and we will mount that on there. Use an MP03 screw for that, and I'll lift it up again. Hold that in place. And let the threads do the work here. You can take the plate off if you want. Especially if you have large fingers, you may want to take this plate off and then remount it, but I was able to hold it with my fingers no problem, and make sure the plate down below fits flush. If it doesn't fit flush, you need to turn it 180 degrees, and mine is flush. We're going to secure that on the other side with this MP01 screw, and it simply gets secured down just like that. Perfect. And that's how that looks. And we can take our brake drum and we can slide that on there just like that, just like we did before. And that's pretty much all we need to do for this stage. And here's the parts pack for stage 59. We are going to be working on the wheel and tire once again, just like we did on previous stage. This time the right rear wheel. Let me take these out and we'll get a closer look. And here's a close-up of the wheel and tire. The wheel itself is made out of metal, very heavy duty, very nice. The valve stem's already attached, just like on the other wheel that we did. Here's the tire, and here's the tread pattern for that tire. It looks pretty nice. You have white wall on one side and the black wall on the other. And the Cobra hubcap, MP03 screw. We're going to go ahead and put the tire on the rim. Now the tire is very hard and solid, so we need to soften it up to get it on the rim. In order to do that, it's recommended that you go ahead and put this in some boiling water for like 2 to 3 minutes. In this case, it only took about 2 minutes the last time I did it. So I'm going to take this to the kitchen, put it in boiled water for a couple minutes, wrap it in foil, bring it back, and I'll show you how to install it. And I am back. I have the tire heated up in the boiling water in foil. I'll take it out and we'll get it installed. So I don't mar the white wall, I'm going to install it from the back side, making sure the valve stem's on the outside, and press it through, stretch it. Stretch it around the wheel. And there it goes, just like that. And that looks great. We'll let that cool off and I will be right back. And we'll go ahead and install this on the chassis next, just like we did before. And I'll bring the chassis over and we'll simply take the brake assembly. Remember, you need to line up the brake, the silver part with the notch that's on the wheel itself. So we'll do that. And then we'll slide this on the axle. And MP03 screw goes into this. Remember, don't over tighten it. And that's perfect. Take our hubcap, put that on. And there you have it. And that completes stage 59, where we put together the wheel and tire. We installed it on the axle, and it looks great. Here's the parts for stage 60, and this time we received the exhaust system. So let me take these out and we'll get a closer look. And here's a close-up of those parts, and everything is plastic here, but you can see we have our dual exhaust painted some very nice silver. We also have the part of the resonators or the glass packs for the exhaust system, MPO1 and MPO2 screws. So before we get started, we'll need to get our exhaust system that we finished in stage 54, and that's this right here, and it's going to mount underneath the chassis. So we have to get the chassis out also. And as I bring the chassis over, we have to take this backing plate off here. And remember, in the previous stages when we were assembling everything, they said to leave the screws loose that hold this down. So we have quite a few screws here that we have to remove to take this plate off. And why are we taking the plate off? So we can slide the exhaust system in underneath the axle, and we're not going to have any problems with being able to do that. So we have to do it from the top here. And the screws were taken out. You want to make sure you kind of keep them separated. You have actually 3 different types of screws holding this plate in, and the instructions tell me that we have 9 MD06 screws that we got from stage 16. We also have 1 MPO3 screw from stage 24 and 1 MPO1 screw from stage 25. So we want to keep them separated, and so you don't get confused with them there. And we'll take the front one. You got a front one here, 2 side here and here, some more here and here, 1 there, 1 there, and then 3 more in the back. So we'll take the front one off, and this is the single, looks like an MP03 screw because it's going into metal. And then we'll take the 9 smaller MD06 screws out. And mine were all loose, so it's really not a problem here doing that. And continue on here. Still taking out some of these MD06 screws. And I have 6 of them removed already. Looking for that MPO1 screw. There's the 9 of them. MD06s are out. This is probably the MPO1 screw right here. Yep. And I should be able to just pop this up. And cover is off. Now what they want us to do is slide the exhaust system in. We'll turn it over to do it. And this is the top that mounts, so we have to take and slide this through. And there we go. That is through there. And that's how we want it. Perfect. Okay. Okay, so and we have to secure this exhaust system with MPO1 screws. There's 6 of them that have to go in on this. And the MPO1 screws actually have larger threads for the plastic. So I'm going to flip this over and get them started. Put the first one in here on the left side. They say to leave them a little loose, so that's what I'll do. We put 2 of them side by side here. A little bit loose. And 2 more. One more. And that looks great right there. Turn it over, we'll have a look at it. And they are still a little loose, but everything looks great on the exhaust system. nice, very nice. Now we'll put our panel back on. Now remember, we have an MPO1 and an MPO3 screw. The MPO3 screw went here, the MPO1 screw here went on the drive shaft, and then the rest are MD for metal screws going all the way around. So we'll go ahead and slide the panel back on. It has to slide under this other panel. There we go. And it's all down so I don't get confused here. MPO1 screw will go right in the middle there, holding the drive shaft on. And it has the larger threads compared to the MD06s. It almost looks just like an MD06, but it has larger threads. And then the MPO3 goes up front and has the flange on the top. And now we can put in all 6 MD06 screws. And these are going into metal. They've already been lubricated. I'm going to get all 9 of these screws in and I'll be right back. And I have all 9 screws back in and the panel is reinstalled. Next we're going to work on the muffler exhaust system. Let me move this out of the way. And we need to flip this over. We're going to install these glass packs. And with that, you want to make sure that the large flange here is facing the back end, just like that. And using these very tiny MDO2 screws to secure this. 2 each. That's good. Do the other side. And they are just tiny. And that's how that looks. Now we need to fit this to the chassis. And in fitting this to the chassis, they will go just like that. And this exhaust system has 4 mounting points, one here, 2 in the back, and 2 up front. So we'll fit the slots in to the exhaust and push them into the mounting areas. And we need to get some MPO1 screws out. And I've been saving all my screws all along from the build, and I have plenty of MPO1s. We need 4 MPO1s. And I'm going to turn this over and put the front ones on first, or the back ones back here on first. And just make sure the holes line up. There's the first one. And the second one. And then we've got 2 more to do up front. And I'm just making sure they line up like they're supposed to. And MPO1 goes in. There's one more to go. And last one in, flip it over and have a look. And I'm going to tighten up the others up front in the back there that we put in a little bit ago. So we don't forget. And they're all tight. Flip it over, and there you have it. And there you have it. That completes stage 60, where we installed the exhaust system. Quite a few steps involved here. We had to take off a panel and put a panel back on in order to do this. Here's the parts pack for stage 61, and we've got a lot of parts here. We're dealing with the steering wheel and column, and I'll go ahead and take out all the parts here and we'll get a look at what's included with this stage, stage 61. And here's a close-up of those parts. The only part that we received that's metal, there's a couple of them, is the steering shaft. And that's very nice there, pretty solid. And the pinion that will be mounted to the steering shaft, that's this right here. And we have to press the steering shaft to the pinion. We have to hammer it down, so you might need a small hammer to do that. And we also need we have the horn switch, which is 03, wire number 03 like they say. Here's the steering wheel, very well detailed. Wood grain type steering wheel, and just very nice. And here's the steering wheel horn, and I'll give you a close-up of that. Very nice graphics on that. Steering column adjuster itself, steering column connector, and of course the two halves of the steering column, NP01 and NP05 screws. Let's get started. Step one, we have to assemble the steering column to the pinion. Now the pinion has a hole with a flat edge, and so does the steering column. And if you look, you can just barely see it there. It's a flat edge. We need to align the flat edge to that pinion, and we're going to need to take a hammer, which I don't have on hand, but I do have a good heavy set of scissors, and I'm going to pound it down. And it is down all the way. Okay, so you should no longer see that flat edge, and it should be even there, which this is the case. Now we have to assemble the wire into our steering column. And we'll fit the wire through the steering column, just like such. Pull it through, except for the switch itself, which needs to lay down flat inside the steering column here. And we fit our wires through it, all the way through here. Okay, so we fit our steering shaft in, and we lay it down in there, and making sure we're taking care that our wires don't get tangled up in there. And we'll attach the cover on it. And the MT05 screws feed into that. The end piece here. We'll put two more in on the bottom. And one more. One more goes on the bottom here. Perfect. And everything turns just fine on the steering column. And the next step we do, we attach the steering wheel to the steering column, and you want you to make sure that the lever is on the left and the steering column lines up with the shaft. And you have like a half moon coming off the steering shaft. We'll have that on the bottom because that's how it shows it on the steering wheel, and we'll press fit that in place. Line it up. You can kind of see how it looks from there. And that's how that looks. And then we'll press our horn onto this. And that functions great. And that's all we do for stage 61. Steering column works great, it turns, and horn button works. We had a couple extra parts, a connector and adjuster for the steering wheel. We're going to install those a little later. Here's the parts for stage 62, and it's simply just got one part here. It's the trunk panel. I'll go ahead and take this out and get a closer look. And here's a close-up of the trunk panel. And it looks like we have a little area here for the spare tire. That's how that looks. So we don't actually do any building with this stage, we just received this part. And we'll be installing this a little bit later. So far it's been a lot of fun, so stay tuned for stage 62. We will assemble the spare tire, I believe, in that stage. So if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe to my channel and hit the bell for all notifications. Head over to Agora Models and subscribe to this car today. I'm having a blast building this. It's a lot of fun and a very easy assembly as we go along. And welcome back. Here's the parts for stage 63. This time we received a spare tire and wheel. So go ahead and take that out and we'll get a closer look. And here's a close-up of the parts, and we received the spare tire and wheel. The wheel is metal and the valve stem is attached to it. Very heavy duty, very heavy. And the tire is a Goodyear tire. You can see the tread pattern there on it. Very nice. Black wall on one side and the white wall on the other. And of course we're going to need to heat up this tire in boiling water for a couple minutes and slide it onto the rim. I might need to put it in there a little bit longer this time. Last time I didn't, and I had a little hard time getting it on the rim. So you want it to be really soft and pliable when you do that. But we're not just going to do that this stage. This stage we are also going to install the steering wheel and floor assembly with this stage. So we'll be getting a lot of parts out here, and we'll be doing some additional assembly of this car, and actually installing the floor assembly to the chassis. So got a lot of work ahead of us with this one. I'm going to go ahead and take this tire, heat it up in some boiling water, bring it back in some aluminum foil, and we'll get this installed. So I'll be right back. And I am back from the stove, and here's the tire. I'll go ahead and take it out. Super hot, and we'll install it from the back side so we don't damage the white wall, and go as fast as you can so you can stretch it around the tire. Just got to stretch it over, and then there it is. Both sides. Perfect. And that's what that looks like there. Now we need to get our other parts over. In step 2, we fit the steering wheel. Now I have the steering wheel here, and if you'll see, I took extra time to fit some tape on the wiring here. So we make sure when I slide it through the hole in the dash column area that it comes through all the way through the end here, so we have it sticking out on the end. So I just temporarily taped our horn wire in place. Now we want to have the steering wheel to go through, and it's going to slot in right there. There's a hole that the steering wheel slots into, and once that goes into that hole, we have this column connector that we received from stage 61, I believe. We'll fit that in there so we can install our our screw, the MP05 screw. So we'll take the column and fit it through the front of the dash. There is a hole that this goes through. All the way through, and my wiring did go through. And we take our and you can see there how it's lined up. That's how they want it. And then we add our connector. It has two holes that line up on each side. And I'm going to do it by hand. Just like that. And you can see how the connector is lined up with the hole. And we put our MP05 screw into that. It's a small screw. And that is lined up. Screw is in and it's secure. Now that we have our steering wheel in place, we'll go ahead and bring over the chassis. Now we're going to install the Terrier on the chassis. When we do this, we want to make sure our steering shaft goes through this channel here. Making sure our tires are straight, and the steering wheel will be straight to line up the pinion with where it needs to go. And we have 4 holes that this mounts down onto on the chassis. And we'll go ahead and turn over the chassis. We'll be installing 2 MP01 screws on the front first. Now you want to be careful that you don't push down on the dash or any of the panels when you get this installed. I'm going to turn it on its side so it's not laying down on its side to do this. And I'm going to put my first screw in on this side here. MP01. And that's tight there. I'm going to turn it around and do the other side. But before I turn it around, I want to make sure everything lines up. My steering wheel, so that my steering wheel is straight and my tires are straight. And now I can install my retainer to lock everything in place. And this retainer here looks just like that with a flap. That's just going to press down and hold everything in place here. And lock it in. And that's good there. So that's locked in place. My wiring is out of the way. It's not underneath. Now I can go ahead and put a screw in on the other side. And that's right there into that hole. And that's tight. And we got 2 more to do. These are going to be on the back side, making sure the back end is all secure. And I'll turn it over and show you without laying on it. So we're going to put one in right there and right there. There and right there. Okay, So I'm going to do that from the side again. So it took some coaxing to get that lined up. I'll put the first screw in while holding it in place. And there's one. Turn this over. Do the other side. And we'll put this last screw in. Had to coax the holes to line up, but it's lined up now. And it's tight. And the chassis is installed. I mean, the interior is installed on the chassis. Move the steering wheel turns also. And there you have it. That completes stage 63, where we installed the interior onto the chassis and we installed the steering wheel onto the steering mechanism, and everything seems to be functioning good for that. Welcome back. Here's the parts for stage 64, and this is the final stage for pack 8. And we received the trunk panels and fitting the spare wheel with this issue. So we've got quite a bit going on in here. I'll go ahead and take these out and we'll get a closer look. And this is the trunk left partition panel and the trunk right partition panel. We also received the scissors jack, and that's what that looks like. And the spare wheel lock with some MP03 screws. Let's get started. We're going to go ahead and assemble the trunk panels. Now we'll take the partition panel that we received earlier in stage 62, and this is the interior side here. This is just the bottom. There's nothing really there. So what you want to do, you want to take your panels and you want to snap them in on the edge. So we'll take this right panel and make sure that this part here is facing outward, and the smooth side is going to be on the inside. And just going to snap in place. There we go. And we'll do the other side. Once again, making sure that this is on the outside and the smooth side is on the inner surface. And one more. There we go. Okay, so they are there. Now we'll take and mount this in the trunk area. So we'll bring the car over. And I believe it goes down just like that. And that snaps down. Onto that. It goes underneath, and that goes on top, underneath, and on top. There we go. And we don't put the screws in just quite yet. We will install those a little bit later. Step 3, we go ahead and install our tire assembly onto the mount for the spare tire. And we need to turn this over. And this basically just slides down on top just like that. And then we take and put an MPO3 screw in on the other side. And that's tight on there. Then we put our cap on top of that, just like that. And now this goes into the trunk. So I'll bring the trunk over. And that will mount just like that on there. They said you can move the side panel just to make it fit easier. Put that on. Back this out here. So we'll put the wheel in there. Turn this around so I can see it. Perfect. And then we can put our panel back on. And that looks good there. Spare tire in the trunk. And that completes stage 64. We installed most of the trunk area here with the spare tire. So if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe to my channel and hit the bell for all notifications. Head over to Agora Models and subscribe to this car today. Happy modeling, everybody, and take care.